Mr. President, when I first ran for Congress in 2010, then Vice President Biden was on a recovery summer tour. You see, on the heels of a $1 trillion stimulus package, he argued millions of jobs would magically appear. Happy days are here again. When that summer ended, the unemployment rate was 9.4%. 280,000 jobs vanished. If ever there was a show that did not deserve a sequel, this was it. But that's exactly what the American people are living through right now. When they passed their $1.9 trillion son of stimulus package earlier this year, the president and his friends in Congress promised millions of jobs and another summer of recovery. Like the original, this sequel is a flop. That's because, once again, our friends across the aisle are confusing taxpayer priorities with a liberal wish list. I see at home the cost of living is rising for Hoosier families and job creators. And you take a trip to my hometown grocery in Greenwood, Indiana. Cost of steak and chicken and bread have all increased. And across the board, the cost of putting food on the table has gone up over 5% since last year. And it's not just groceries. Cost of gas and energy and housing and household goods are at historic highs. All while America endures a nationwide crime wave and our borders are overrun. Now, I know my Democratic colleagues don't want to use the I word, but let's call it what it is: inflation. Taxation without legislation. And inflation is at its highest level since 2008. We know they want to raise taxes on Americans, including those in the middle class. But this is probably not what Democrats had in mind. But the president, evidently, he's not worried. He says the rising cost of living is only temporary. It's transitory. Now, look, this is easy for him to say. His pocketbook isn't impacted by inflation. He isn't buying groceries at the local grocery store or a new fridge for the White House. He's not gassing up the presidential limousine. Maybe that explains why he's urging Congress to spend another $3.5 trillion taxpayer dollars. $10 billion here for environmental justice, $174 billion there for electric cars, a massive expansion of Medicare and Medicaid, and trillions more in taxes on American families as we emerge from a global pandemic. Now, trust me, I can tell you, Hoosiers don't want any of that, and nor do the majority of the American people. No more $1 trillion tax and spend rescue plans. They aren't rescuing Americans. They're raising their cost of living. Now, don't take it from me. Take it from Larry Summers, President Obama's economic advisor. He's warning President Biden about inflation, has been for a number of months. In fact, he described recent fiscal macroeconomic policy, including the last round of nearly $2 trillion in stimulus, as, I'm quoting here, the least responsible fiscal macroeconomic policy we've had in the last 40 years. With friends like these. But you know, he speaks the truth. I wish the president would listen to Secretary Summers. He certainly won't listen to us. We're not arguing for inaction, though. In fact, we're willing to collaborate. We know there's need for targeted and responsible government spending tied to actual results on core infrastructure, on workforce training, on cutting-edge technology. We just believe that every taxpayer dollar is a sacred trust, and we should treat it accordingly. If we're going to invest it, the American people better see returns. What they're seeing in the Democrats' $3.5 trillion budget proposal is a rerun of a failed trillion-dollar tax and spend spectacle from just a decade ago. Now, the final act of that show, by the way, was not recovery. It was the American people handing control of the House of Representatives over to the Republican Party. The president should keep that in mind. The president should keep that in mind. Mr. President, I yield.